Hello, this is Josh Heil, and this is this Citizen podcast on the Advisor View, and we're joined by Rebecca White of Harrington Investments, and we're so excited to have you here. And maybe just to start us out, you can give us a quick overview of your firm and also your background within wealth management.
Sure. So, my background I'll start with my background and how I came to Harrington. So it was definitely not linear. I actually started out in international economic development. And that sort of through that, I think I gained a big appreciation of sort of how capital helps or hinders communities. From there, I kind of took a little more traditional path of going from venture capital into institutional asset management. And I was working a lot on the business development and client service side of the institutional space with a lot of endowments and foundations. So started my work there, and that sort of actually progressed into a lot of conversations around sustainable investing and ESG. So with a lot of the foundation and endowment clients. From there, I kind of went through like 3 different mergers and kind of had enough of corporate finance for a while. So I actually got out for quite a bit, did my own dabbling in some small business, started a farm to table restaurant, zero waste.
Wow.
Trying to kind of do my own hand in values aligned investing, a lot of what we're asking our companies to do.
In a tough space.
In a very tough space. Yeah, it was in a very rural area. So it was a little bit of a passion project. But in that's when I met John Harrington. And so it sort of pulled everything together in thinking that, my idea of trying to bring more capital and using capital as a lever for social change even was something that I really wanted to jump back into. So then really started working closely with John. And so John has actually, so Harrington Investment has been doing their work since like in the 80s. John was very much involved in the state legislature and the anti-apartheid divest from South Africa movement back in, the 80s and 90s through the state legislature. And so Harrington Investments really sort of has grown out of that movement and sort of from his leadership. So that's where we are today. We have about 350 million in assets under management with individuals as well as small organizations, labor unions and such.
Nice. That's amazing. And so maybe just, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but you can maybe talk about how Harrington approaches wealth management differently wealth management is broad. There's a lot of ways that people talk about it or think about wealth management, what that actually means. So from your perspective, how is Harrington different?
So I think what we do, well, first our work is sort of it's grounded in like 3 pillars that we see. The first one is maybe a little bit more traditional we have pretty strict exclusionary and inclusionary guidelines to our investable universe. So that's, a lot what folks do out there. But that's only a part of how we look at the world. And I will step back and say that most of our clients have asked us very explicitly to align their capital with their values. And so that is always the overarching theme. So, but as far as public equities and fixed income, what we can provide for them, we do have very strict guidelines of what we will and will not invest in. And that goes along across all of our clients. So that's the first pillar. The second one is really around shareholder advocacy and engaging with corporations, whether we're owners of them for our clients or whether we're owners sort of just to have systemic change. We also are very involved with the shareholder advocacy, whether it's just corporate engagement or whether it's putting forth shareholder resolutions. And then the third pillar is really around community investing for our clients that want deeper impact. we will help them either invest in whether it's just CDFIs, community development finance institutions, whether it's actual private funds in hyper community investing, or whether it's philanthropy and donor advised funds. We actually get involved in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and you mentioned it a second ago, but like the type of clients you serve and who is really coming to you for these specific values aligned investment. I think you might have mentioned like foundations, small foundations, but what does your demographic of clients look like and how are they finding you?
To date, it has all been by way of referral. And so it's a very tight group. I think I mentioned John came from the state legislature. And so a lot of these folks are very much politically aligned. They're very progressive. And so they really are coming to us to kind of have deeper change and to really put their capital to work for that reason.
Yeah.
We still are fiduciaries, and we take that very serious in the sense that but we see it, I would say that we see it, our fiduciary duty as a bit broader. It's not just about short-term financial gain. It's actually about asking the hard questions of, are we, is there any externalities and how are our investments really impacting our community and the broader society and the broader system with which we are working in.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And it like is it mostly high net worth individuals, mass affluent? Is it okay?
It is mostly it's high net worth individuals. The organizations that we do have are small, mostly social justice organizations. Some of them are labor unions, things like that. So they have very strict guidelines that are aligned with ours. We often will get narrower, like we have our set guidelines for our clients or for our firm. Sometimes our clients want them to be even more restrictive. I mean, whether some say, I don't want to even buy treasuries, for instance, because I don't want to participate in war, or they want to have like no social media, for instance. So we still have to work to get a diversified portfolio for them, but that align, even more narrow with what they're trying to achieve.
And how does that look in practicality? Like, so say you have a new client that's coming in and you're trying to get and say they have $2 to $5 million, you're trying to get them aligned with their values. What does that actually look like from a portfolio construction standpoint? Are you taking kind of some level of values assessment with them coming in, or how are you actually implementing that?
We will go through their portfolio, stock by stock, because we're building portfolios. We don't really use models of SMA or anything like that. We will go through line by line and let them know whether or not we're willing to. I mean, we'll often include a legacy position, probably more for tax efficiencies or something like that, and try to get rid of it over time. But what we'll do is basically divest, and we'll let them know why we're divesting from certain positions that they might have held in the past, with tax implications, obviously. And then we will work to then build out the diversification within the different industries. That's for their like public equity side. For the fixed income, it's a little bit probably easier. We don't have as strict of guidelines, but we often will not, but we still don't do any fossil fuel. We don't do any banks or anything like that. But it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more leeway there to add fixed income or to use funds. But again, it kind of depends how deep the client wants us to go on that side as well. But yeah, we just will literally trim some down. It may take a year or two to do that, to get their portfolio fully aligned. And we're just communicate with them along the way and have to work with their individual sort of tax, bracket too.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good question. So taxes, such an important consideration for high net worth individuals, and thinking about, especially for clients who are based in California. So how do you think about taxes as a consideration of how you're actually implementing these portfolios?
I think a lot of it is setting expectations for clients, because it's kind of like, you got to pay your taxes. It's a good thing for some. For others, what we do, if they're making money, then they're going to be having to work at not paying so many taxes then, which means sometimes they're giving more. And we work with their CPA on maybe expanding their philanthropic or opening a donor advised fund. And so that's what we're often doing. We will do some tax loss harvesting, in conjunction with their CPA for some. And then we'll also work on some really concentrated positions to try to pull, some of that risk off the table. I mean, not the tax consequences, but it's just sort of a year by year, you kind of just chip away at it for many of our clients. And a lot of our clients have been with us for many, many years. And so we have the time to do that.
Yeah. And what about like just how you're utilizing private markets? What clients you think it's appropriate for? How do you assess the client appropriateness for utilizing private markets within their portfolio, and also just like the sizing of that within client portfolios?
Yeah, that has been, that's a tough one. One for a lot of our clients for those that are retired. That's where we have a lot of the difficulty, depending on the size of their portfolio, how much appetite they have for it. They do want it. Oftentimes, though, I will say they kind of will just skip right over to the philanthropy and feel like, well, rather than try to find a very deep, impactful community, private market, where the money feels tied up, I think it's easier for them to just say, hey, I'm just going to give over here. It'll both help my taxes and I can give to my local charities. But we are finding more and more of questions that come around it, especially for a lot of the community investing on the private funds that are kind of expanding. I know that the minimums have come down over the years and the access has gone up. So I think we're just exploring that more and more, especially with younger generation. I think the next generations are very, very interested in it and seeing where their dollars can actually make a change. So that's why we've been trying to focus more. Now, I think it's going to take more time for that generational transfer to happen and for the younger generation to really, feel like they're more in control and they can actually take a stand. And probably also for them to build up some more wealth of their own. So it's
and that's actually a good point, because if you, per the surveys, it's like that generation doesn't really want to invest as much in the stock market as previous generations have. And that will be an ample shift in how future investments are done. Now, to your point, have you seen any wealth transfers happening? Have you seen that trend kind of starting to play out within your specific client base? And how do you, prepare for kind of that wealth transfer?
We have seen it. And so that's both an opportunity for us. It's both an opportunity and a challenge, right? So as it changes, some of those assets may leave. I think there's a huge portion that, want a different type of financial advisor. And so we have to work now on building the relationship with that next generation. And the challenge for us is that the next generation has a whole different way of investing, in communicating, in, where they want to read their stuff, all of it. And so we're trying to embrace that and get more, information on community investing out there, starting blog posts, being out there on social media, all of that stuff. Because, a lot of that generation doesn't want to pick up the phone and talk to us. They just want to read our blogs first and read what we're doing. And I think you're right about them shifting, they can do their own investing in public equities, really. So I do think what engages them and what intrigues them is some of our shareholder advocacy around those companies. Okay, you can hold all these companies and just let them sit in your portfolio and, watch the prices go up and down. Or you can engage with them too and try to understand what they're doing and try to engage with other shareholders around that, around issues that you see are, concerning. And so I do think that captures some of them, although it probably feels very far away for a lot of them, as they're just
Hmm.
a lot of the younger generations, as they're just trying to build their careers and
Yeah.
whatnot. So it kind of depends on where they are on that wealth spectrum too, and how much they have to dabble with, and how much time they have.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, and this is, I guess goes into like next generation kind of current topics, but how are you thinking about and utilizing AI currently, and where do you see that affecting, wealth management in the future?
AI. It's here. We kind of see it as it's here to stay. So, as much as we have our very big concerns around the data centers, around all of that, and how that's going to affect the environment and energy and all of that. So that's the obvious concern, just like everybody else has. I think having good policies around it is what we keep trying to support, both internally at our own firm as well as other companies. I think it's just a huge question for so many people. We don't know how it's going to develop, we know it's going to change society. We just don't quite know what that's going to look like. I mean, it's similar to when the internet came, right? Everyone's like, what? I don't want to type. That's so impersonal.
Yeah. And do you
But
think
I
it
think
will
it's
make
going to
you
be
more efficient for your firm?
more efficient. Some things, it's a lot easier to just compile a lot of different
Yeah.
data. It's great in summarizing some things. We have a real big concern around privacy.
Yeah.
Like even in webinars or when we have Zoom calls, like we don't use it for the AI assistants. We have, again, there's a little bit of concerns of where is that data stored? How are other companies using it? And so we're constantly just trying to ask questions around that to make sure everybody's thinking about it. It's not just us and our small firm, but it's really how we are going to address it kind of as a society, and how are we all going. I mean, I think we're developing social norms around it, right?
Yeah.
Like what's okay when what's not in using AI. So I think that's just developing in real time.
Yeah. And I guess as maybe this is a two-part question, but where do you see your firm going in the next 3 to 5 years, and how do you see it evolving?
Well, I will say, current administration aside, I think that we are not going anywhere. We're kind of just doubling down on a lot of the work that we've always done, in the sense that, we've always been bringing forth resolutions and trying to sort of keep corporate accountability in check. And I think it's given that there's more concentration of wealth and more concentration of corporate power, I feel like that's just even more, needed as we go forward. So we're definitely just continuing the work, along with we're doing a lot of collaboration, I will say, and I think that will increase in the next several years. So we collaborate with other like-minded investors to be more strategic about where we really want to see change and how we want to see corporations engage. I think there's going to continue to be like tension between short-term returns and long-term resilience. For companies, we still believe it's about the long game. So we'll continue to sort of ride that out, and as well as try to get other asset managers to understand. I mean, we believe that it's about active engagement, and you can't just invest passively anymore. You kind of have to know where your dollars are, what they're supporting, what they're not supporting, that kind of thing. So we're hoping to be amongst those that are sort of actively moving forward in the space around thinking about fiduciary duty more broadly and more systemically.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about just wealth management in general? How do you see that kind of evolving for the broader universe?
I think it is shifting, especially like as we talked about the generational transfer. I mean, well, I think people are becoming more in tuned that capital is really a tool. It can be used as a tool, and it has very real implications for society, or communities, either that have it or don't have it. And so I think people are becoming more and more aware of that, and they are sort of asking more questions about what it's doing, what my money's doing and, and what it's supporting. So I do think that, wealth managers are going to have to be accountable for that overall, and have to really know how the long-term implications for those dollars are. Now, there's always going to be people that just don't care, and they want the high return. And there are the managers that shoot for the fences, and they'll always be there. But I do think there is more education. I mean, I think people are being more educated around what's happening now that everybody has a 401k, and your 401k has implications, on society now. So, yeah. I think it is shifting towards that.
Mm-hmm. And and I think that's true. And I think people will be like, especially the next generation, have a little bit different views and are looking at different, as you said, news resources and finding information in different ways. What about just as you continue to, position the firm for future growth? You kind of mentioned some of the ways you're trying to implement next gen kind of discussions, but any other places where you're seeing where you could grow your firm or evolve your firm?
I think we do want to work with small organizations. I think that we have a really solid base of high net worth individuals. A lot of them are very active in civil society.
Like on boards and things
they're
like
on
that.
boards. So I think where we're kind of going is really helping small nonprofits, how they think about their, whole program fund. That's where we've been sort of shifting some of our time. Some of it is just regular cash management stuff and more strategic help, I think, advice and help. But yeah, that might be a small niche that we're looking to do, as well as spending our time with next generation, because I do see there's lots of shifts happening, and we're still figuring out how that's going to lead us into the next few years.
Yeah. So here's a little bit of a different off-topic situation. So what's one thing that people may not know about you, or hobby that you enjoy?
Yeah, a hobby that I enjoy. Well, I'll go back to the restaurant. We did have a
Okay. Let's go.
We have a little passion project around our farm to table minimal waste wet restaurant in the middle of nowhere, which is up in Northern California. It's in the middle of Trinity Alps Wilderness, tiny little rural community up there that we just decided they had no restaurant at all, and within a span of like 20 miles. So we ended up opening that. We still own it today. And so that's a big push for us. We really were trying to make
What's it called?
It's called Yellow Jacket Eatery.
Yellow Jacket Eatery.
Okay. Yep. And I think working with a small rural town, I'm from Oakland, so big city. And so we kind of felt during COVID, like that's where we kind of ended up going. And then we just felt that, that was really more on the front lines, and working and dialoguing with people to kind of figure out where people are aligned and where they're not, and being able to debate and have different political opinions. So it was a real venture, a real challenge. And I think it
continues to be, it sounds like it.
It does. But I think, as we kind of analyze all these companies, to actually get in the weeds and see how difficult it is for them to, grow, whether it's a sustainable business or just a small business. I mean, there's so many challenges that they have with staff and people and all this stuff. So it's been kind of a fun venture for us.
So what's kind of the genre of food?
Oh, well, we do farm to table. I mean, we do just gourmet sort of like burgers and fries. It's a resort town. It's right by the lake. So we get a lot of like outdoor enthusiasts, a lot of boaters that are up there. So we try to do all like locally sourced, or mostly locally sourced, like beer and wine, all the microbrews, even our spirits. We got like local distilleries that we do little specialty cocktails and all of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all house made,
go.
all good. So hopefully
Yeah.
people will join us up in Trinity County.
Trinity County. Okay. All right. We will definitely check that out. Well, anything else we should know about Harrington before we jump off here?
I don't know. I think I mean, I would just say that I feel like we've got such a passionate team, you know, of folks that have been doing, you know, socially responsible investing for so many years. And we just encourage everybody to sort of ask questions of their own asset manager, of, you know, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and all of that. We think it's a team effort. So yeah, would love
Great.
for people to check us out.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
Sure. Thank you.